What happened when native African spears beat British rifles in the War for the Zulu Empire in 1879? We can get a glimpse of it from the words of Color Sergeant Frank Bourne, who witnessed the battle from a distance, then participated in the siege that immediately followed. The Color Sergeant's account was published in the December 1936 issue of The Listener, after he had been promoted to lieutenant colonel, and a couple of years before World War II heated up in Europe. In December 1872, when I was 18 years old, I enlisted in the 24th Regiment. I went to bed every night hungry, but quite happy, and it made a man of me. The regiment had just come home from India after 15 years. Now, the A Company of any regiment in those days was always called the Grenadier Company, and was supposed to have the biggest men. I think the sergeant major must have been a wee bit humorous, for he posted me to our A Company, although I stood only 5 foot 6 inches and was painfully thin. It's funny, the film Zulu portrays Frank Bourne with actor Nigel Green on the left, when he probably looked more like the man on the right. But anyway. In February 1878, the regiment received sudden orders to proceed to the Cape of Good Hope to take part in the Kaffir War. This was my first experience of active service, and shortly after, my colonel promoted me to color sergeant of B Company, 100 strong. I was only 23, very nervous, sensitive, and afraid of my new responsibilities. Several men of the company were my own age, others older, and some old enough to be my father. I also found myself unpaid private secretary to several men who could barely read or write, and I deciphered and answered their letters home, feeling quite happy in our relations. One day I heard a man named Wall ask my Batman if the Kid was in. I asked Partridge casually who the Kid was, and received the answer, "Why, you are, of course." We were a very happy family. You can't live in tents, and on Mother Earth, for 2 years on active service without knowing your men intimately. In June 1878, we were moved to Pietermaritzburg, Natal, to assist in raising the curtain on the Zulu drama. On January 11, 1879, we crossed the Buffalo River at Rorke's Drift into Zulu country. Our commander-in-chief was Lord Chelmsford. Our strength was 4,500 men, including 13 companies of my regiment, the 24th, now the South Wales Borderers. One company was left behind at Rorke's Drift to guard the hospital stores and the pontoons at the drift on the Buffalo River. This was my company, and at the time I was bitterly disappointed. We saw the main column under Lord Chelmsford engage the enemy at once, and I watched the action, along with my 4 sergeants, from a little hill by Rorke's Drift. Then we saw them move on again, and they disappeared. And now I must tell you what happened to them during the next 10 days. They made their camp under a hill called Isandhlwana, about 10 miles away. On the 21st, Lord Chelmsford learned that the enemy was in force ahead of the camp, and he moved out on the morning of the 22nd with nearly half his force to attack them. But as he advanced, they disappeared, and in his absence his camp was attacked and overwhelmed by 4,000 Zulus. So swift was the disaster that the few survivors who got away could give no reliable account of it. But the evidence of the dead who were afterwards found and buried where they lay told us the unvarying tale of groups of men fighting back to back until the last cartridge was fired. After the war, Zulu witnesses all told the same story. At first we could make no headway against the soldiers. But suddenly they ceased to fire. Then we came round them and killed them with our assegais. According to one account, the last survivor was a drummer boy who flung his short sword at a Zulu. This was the last occasion that band or drummer boys were taken on active service. Lieutenants Melville and Coghill lost their lives that day trying to save the colors. Fully 1,200 men were killed. And by 1:30, no white man was alive in Isandhlwana camp. Of course, back at Rorke's Drift, we knew nothing of this disaster, although my sergeants and I on our hill above it could hear the guns and see the puffs of smoke. But an hour later, at 2 o'clock, a few refugees arrived and warned us of what to expect. One man whispered to me, "Not a fighting chance for you, young feller." Up to that time, we had done nothing to put our small post in a defensive position, as our force in front was nearly 5,000 strong and had 6 guns. And the last thing we expected was that we should be the saviors of the remainder of that force. The strength of our small garrison at the Drift was 2 combatant and 6 departmental officers, and 133 non-commissioned officers and men, 36 of whom were sick, leaving about 100 fighting men. Remember that 1,200 men had just been massacred at Isandhlwana. Can you then be surprised that, flushed with their success, the Zulus were making for our small post, confident that we should be easy victims to their savagery? In Part 2, we'll look at what happened next, from the viewpoint of Color Sergeant Frank Bourne. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel for new videos every week or two, and see the description below for a list of books, films, and online resources featured in this video.